We live in a world where everything is designed to be looked at. Beautiful places, beautiful people, beautiful moment. We are constantly being given something new to look at. And yet, I sometimes wonder if we've forgotten how to actually see. Because there's a difference between seeing something and actually looking at it. And I think Claude Monet understood that better than most. Hi, my name is Ariel. Welcome to my train of thoughts. I hope you enjoyed the ride. Today, I want to talk about beauty and why Monet spent his entire life trying to capture something that technically you can't hold on to light. When you looked at Monet paintings, the first thing you might notice is the subject: a garden, a cathedral, a river, a woman standing in a field. But that wasn't really the point. Monet was interested in something more harder to capture: the way light changes what we're looking at. The same tree can look completely different at sunrise. A building can feel warm in the afternoon and almost blue in the evening. The water can reflect the sky, the clouds, the surrounding landscape. And suddenly you don't quite know where one ends and the other begins. For Monet, these weren't just details. They were the subject. He wasn't trying to create one definite version of reality. He was interested in the fact that reality is constantly shifting depending on where, when, and how you looked at it. Take Impression, Sunrise. This is the painting that gave Impressionism its name, and it's almost funny when you think about what we're looking at: a harbor, a few boats, some building disappearing in the mist, and this teeny tiny orange sun right in the middle of everything. There's very little definition, very little detail. If Monet wanted to give us an accurate picture of the arbor, he could have done that. Instead, he gave us an atmosphere. You can almost feel the damp air, the stillness of the early morning, the strange moment when the day hasn't quite decided what it's going to be yet. And that was part of the revolution. The painting wasn't asking, what does this place look like? It was asking, what does this place feel like right now? Which is a very different question. Then there's a woman with a parasol. It's Camille, Monet's wife, standing in a field with their son Jean. Hope I got the name correctly. Nothing dramatic is happening. She's simply standing there. And yet the entire painting feels like it's moving. Look at the dress. The fabric is not rendered in perfect details. It's almost made of light. Now look at the grass. The color aren't neatly separated, they're bouncing into one another. And then there's the sky. You can almost imagine what the air felt like. That's what I find so remarkable about it. Monet wasn't freezing a moment in time, he was giving you the sensation of being inside of it. And once you start to look at his paintings that way, you stop asking whether they're realistic, because that's not really the point. They're experiential. And this is where Monet becomes slightly obsessive. He would paint the subject over and over and over again. Haystacks, poplars, Rouen Cathedral, and I hope I pronounced this in the correct way again. The subject remained. Everything around it changed. Morning became afternoon, summer became winter, clear skies became fog. The architecture stayed exactly what it was. But the painting didn't, because the light didn't. Monet wasn't looking for the perfect painting of a cathedral. He was looking at all the ways a cathedral could exist in light. And that distinction tells you a lot about the way he saw the world. He wasn't particularly interested in permanence. He was interested in perception. And eventually, his obsession led him to my favorite: the water lilies. These are probably the paintings that most people immediately associate with Monet, but they're also some of his most interesting work. Because at this point, the traditional idea of a landscape almost disappears. There's no obvious horizon, no clear foreground, no comfortable point to tell you where to look. You're just surrounded by flowers, reflection, water, and light. The surface becomes the entire world. And suddenly you're not standing in front of a painting of a pond. You're looking into it. Or perhaps you're looking at yourself looking into it. And there's almost something meditative about that. And I think that's part of what makes the water lilies so modern. They don't tell you where the image begins or ends. They simply give you somewhere to stay for a while. The more I look at Monet, the less I think he was trying to paint beauty. I think he was trying to understand it, because beauty isn't particularly stable. It changes with the light, with the weather, with your mood, with your memory. The same place can feel completely different depending on who you are when you return to it. And Monet seems to understand that instinctively. He kept kept returning to the same subject because he knew there wasn't one final version of them. There was only what they looked like in that particular moment. And perhaps that's why I find Monet particularly relevant now, because we live in a culture that encourages us to document everything. We photograph the meal, the hotel, the sunset, the outfit, the person we're with. We collect proof that we were there. But Monet spent his whole life doing almost the opposite. He was trying to experience it closely enough to understand what made it beautiful. There's a difference. And I think we've lost a little bit of that distinction. So perhaps we can borrow something from Monet. Not the painting, not the French garden, and definitely not the commitment of painting the same pond for decades, just the attention. Look at the way the light falls across your room. Notice how someone's expression changes when they start to talk about something they love. Watch the sky a little bit longer before taking a picture of it. Go somewhere beautiful and for once don't immediately think how you're going to remember it. Just be there. Because maybe beauty doesn't always need to be captured. Maybe sometimes it only needs to be noticed. I think that's what Monet ultimately gave us. Not a formula for creating beautiful paintings, something much simpler. A reminder that the world doesn't have to become extraordinary before it's worth paying attention to. Sometimes the light changes and suddenly something you see 100 times look completely different. The view hasn't changed, you have. Maybe that's the real beauty of looking. Noticing that there was always more there than you thought. Anyway, that's my take. I'll see you in the next one.